Check please, garçon, check please, because now you know not to waste your time with him because you guys are clearly not on the same page. Hey y'all, it's D and welcome to Detox. In today's video, we're going to be getting into how to date effectively based on a few things like my personal experience and just my understanding of people and how they operate in general. So let's talk about it. Before we get into the video though, are you subscribed yet? Because if you're not subscribed, I just like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? But it's okay. I forgive you. I'll give you some time to go ahead and do that. Did you do it yet? Okay, great. Now we can get into the video. So the inspiration for this video comes from the fact that a lot of women my age for the past couple of years have been very disappointed and overall just disillusioned by the dating world. All the time I hear the phrase, I'm never gonna find a good man, or I'm gonna end up alone, or worse, that all men are trash, all men are liars and cheaters, and I just refuse to believe that. Call me a dreamer, call me an optimist, but I just don't accept that because there are literally too many men in the world, like statistically speaking, and I know too many good men personally for me to believe and accept that there are no good men left in the world. So my theory is that maybe some of us are just not going about dating the right way. Maybe, just maybe, there's some things that we don't know or just some things that we're not doing that keep leading us back to disappointment. And so I came up with a few tips to just change your mindset about men in the dating world in general. And I also came up with a few tips to just put yourself in the best possible position to start dating and to start dating effectively. The very first tip that I have for you guys today is pretty simple, honestly. And it's just to get out of that negative narrative that all men are trash. The fact of the matter is that it's just not true. And if you start to tell yourself that over and over again, you'll eventually start to believe it. And you'll even end up passing up opportunities with good men because you've already convinced yourself that all men are trash. Or even worse, you're so focused on all men being trash that all you start to attract are trash men. Mind over matter, sis. Do you know how many men there are in the world for you to make that type of generalization? So get out of that mindset, sis. You might see Susie over there happy with her man on Instagram, but he's in your DMs every single night, and you might automatically think all men are trash. Don't say it. But no, sis. Susie's man is trash. The next tip is a really important one, and I feel like it's relatively obvious, but it's to figure out what you want. But if you go into dating with zero intention, zero ideas to what you want, you'll end up falling for anything. And I've mentioned this in a previous video, but how can you expect to find a good man if the definition of a good man is different for every woman? Basically, I would suggest making a list that would consist of what you want in a man, like good sense of humor, good looks, and what you need in a man, like honesty, communication, reliability, and also leave room for deal breakers. And deal breakers are things that you don't budge on, because let's face it, the perfect man is never going to be perfect. There are always going to be some things that he's missing from your list, but the only part on your list that should be non-negotiable are those deal breakers. So for some people it might be domestic violence, for some people it might be cheating, whatever the case may be. So your list should consist of wants, needs, and deal breakers. So in a nutshell, figure out what you want before you get into the dating world, before you start putting yourself out there. So tip number 3 is another one that has to do with changing your mindset. You guys have heard the saying, date to marry, right? Well, I don't agree with that statement.
It was all a lie.
Well, I agree with it to a certain extent, and before y'all start coming for me in the comments, let me explain what I mean. A lot of women tend to go into dating with the expectation of marriage, and the reason that this is not the best way to go into dating, especially early on, is because if you go into dating with the expectation of marriage, you place a lot of unnecessary pressure on the relationship from the very beginning. Because in your mind, you plan on marrying this guy that you just started dating, you start to place all these unreasonable expectations as to how he should be acting out and how he should be treating you, and vice versa. Going in with that mindset is literally setting yourself up for failure, and one of the main reasons why we see a lot of these women playing wifey to men who won't even claim them. It's because in her mind, she's dating to marry him, and so when he does things like hurts her or messes up, she's much more willing to forgive and forget because, again, this is her husband. So the key, ladies, the key is to not go in with the expectation of marriage, but the intention of marriage. So you know you want the white picket fence and the everlasting love with a really good man, so keep that at the forefront. Keep that right in your mindsets, but don't place that pressure on your relationships going in. So don't get ahead of yourself and jump the gun, sis. You know that saying, innocent until proven guilty? Well, in this case, he's playing games until he proves to you otherwise. So early on when you start dating a guy and he's saying all the right things and you find yourself picking out wedding dresses because he's so amazing and sweet and funny, pump your brakes, sis, pump your brakes. Remember, Don't take him seriously until he starts to show you all these things he's saucing you up with his actions. Don't get caught up in the sauce game, sis, because men will say what they need to say to get what they want. Your panties. So if you want to give him more than just your panties, believe his actions, not just his words. And you have to remember that early on in dating, everyone puts their best foot forward. Everyone's trying to make a good impression. So he's gonna say what he needs to say to give the best impression. So don't buy what he's selling, sis, until he proves it to you consistently. And again, intention of marriage, not the expectation. Tip number 4, and this tip is a little bit controversial. Some people might not agree with me, but my next tip is to play the field and date multiple men. And before y'all come for my neck in the comments, just because you're dating multiple men does not mean you're being intimate with all of them. Don't let anybody tell you that it's wrong to play the field, because at the end of the day, until we discuss the parameters of our relationship and we decide to be exclusive, I can date whoever I want to date. I think we as women have a very different view of dating than men do. And I think that's honestly the root of the problem. We tend to take dating very seriously in the beginning, a little too seriously, which is why we tend to get played so often. We meet a guy with potential, we go on a few dates with him, and next thing you know, we've latched onto this man and we're ready to settle down before we even got to explore our options. Like, damn, slow your roll, sis. Men, on the other hand, they like to explore their options because not everybody is marriage material. Here's what I want you to do, sis. I want you to think of dating as you being an employer and the guys who are interested in you being possible employees. You're basically evaluating each and every one of them based on your wants and your needs. Now, a good employer would do what? A good employer would interview a good number of people to gauge who fits their needs the best. Same thing goes when dating. You can't just pick the first guy who wines and dines you a little bit, who shows you a little bit of attention. You have to collect information on each and every guy. This one YouTuber that I watch says that dating is basically data collection. And so gather information on all these guys. Like, this one is very smart and intellectual, but not very romantic. This one is very sweet and romantic, but he's very flaky. So the idea is to basically get to a point where you can make an informed decision on who to be with. So my next tip, tip number 5, correlates directly with the last tip that I just gave you, and it's basically to ask the right question, because remember, y'all, the point is to be able to make an informed decision, to be able to collect data. And so ask the right questions. Yes, knowing his favorite color and what kind of car he drives is great and all, but you have to ask questions that are going to gauge whether or not he's the kind of person that you actually want to be with. Remember, you're the interviewer and you have to be strategic. Don't be out here wasting dates by not asking the right questions. The whole point is to decide if you guys are a good fit and if he has the qualities that you're looking for. So ask about his goals, ask about his dreams, his future, his morals, his beliefs, his intentions. Does he even want a relationship, or is he just dating for fun? And I feel like that's probably the most important question, because it's going to determine whether or not you guys are even on the same page. So if you're looking for a serious relationship and he tells you that he's just dating for fun, check please, garçon, check please, because now you know not to waste your time with him because you guys are clearly not on the same page. I know it sounds like a lot for the first couple of dates, but I hate small talk. Like, I want to get deep. Let's talk about your childhood memories. What's your relationship like with your mom? Who are your role models? How would the people closest to you describe you? Who are your favorite music artists? Because let's face it, y'all, we can tell a lot about a person based on their music taste. Because what happens all the time is when we don't ask the right questions from the beginning so we can learn about the contents of his character, we end up falling for superficial things like what kind of car he drives, or him taking us out on this extravagant date. We end up buying the dream that he sold us and end up disappointed in the end because we didn't take the time to really get to know him. Now you're months into the relationship and you realize that he's not what you want or need, but now your feelings are involved, and it makes it that much harder for you to walk away. And honestly, when you think about it, superficial things are just not sustainable because they can fade. Like him having a nice car or having money, that can change at any moment. But his character, him being kind and selfless, that's not gonna change. That's not gonna fade because that's his character, and that's the stuff that actually matters. So when you're on these dates, ask less surface level questions and ask deeper questions so you can learn the contents of his character. And honestly, the way that he answers these questions are a good indicator as to what his intentions are, because if he feels like he's being interrogated, check please, he's not the one for you anyway, because somebody who's dating intentionally is going to also want to reciprocate these kinds of questions because he's also trying to figure out if you are right fit for him. Tip number 6, the next tip that I have for you guys is just to have some fun. The beginning stages of dating are supposed to be fun and exciting. You're meeting and getting to know new people, the thrill of the chase, the cute text messages. A lot of us tend to take ourselves too seriously and tend to take dating way too seriously, especially in the beginning, like I said earlier. So much so that we forget to actually take a second to actually enjoy it. It's so important to just do fun stuff. And yes, a nice fancy dinner is great once in a while, but I think the best way to really get to know somebody is to do fun stuff like ziplining, mountain climbing, scuba diving, bowling, or even something as simple as an ice cream date. But the point is that it's okay to have some fun. It's okay to let your guard down a little bit and have a good time. It's okay to not be so perfect all the time. A lot of us have been taught to believe that we're supposed to be the ones performing and we're supposed to be the ones making sure that we come off as a good woman. And so we're so busy trying to make sure that he knows how amazing and great and wifeable we are that we forget to actually have a good time. Or worse, we forget to evaluate him and figure out if he's even worth our time. Have fun, sis. Make sure that when you're getting to know him that you're having fun, because what's the point of getting all cute for a date if you're not even gonna have a good time? The next tip that I have for you guys today, number 7, is to just make sure that you're ready to start dating. Make sure that you're sure enough in yourself and that you understand yourself enough to start dating. Ask yourself why you even want to start dating in the first place. Why do you even want a man? Is it because you don't know how to be alone? Is it because you see everybody boot up on social media and so now you want a man too? Or is it because you're trying to distract yourself from dealing with the pain from your past relationships? Whatever the case may be, make sure you are whole. Make sure that you are completely content and happy by yourself before you even think about getting into a relationship with somebody else. If you don't know how to be happy by yourself on your own and you think a man's gonna make you happy, sis, you are sadly mistaken. A lot of us tend to jump from relationship to relationship before we can even heal and deal with the pain from the past relationship, and so we find ourselves repeating the same patterns over and over again. Some of us tend to get into relationships with men who don't even treat us right because we are that afraid of being alone. Don't be that girl, sis. Be the girl who worked on herself enough to heal from her past traumas and learn from her past relationships, and is so sure of herself and loves herself so much that she doesn't need a man to complete her because she is already complete within herself. You want to be the girl who wants, not needs, a man to compliment her, to grow with her. When you have a strong sense of self and a healthy sense of self-esteem, not only are you better equipped to get into a relationship, but you're also better equipped to walk away from a relationship with a man who's not treating you the way that you deserve to be treated. Once you get to that place where you know who you are and what you want, you'll stop accepting any dude that comes your way, because at that point you know your worth, you know your value, and you know what you deserve. At that point you'll start attracting the right kind of men, the kind of men who can pour into you instead of drain you. And when you start attracting the right caliber of men, you can use all these wonderful tips that I just gave you so you can weed out the ones who aren't for you and find your king. You're welcome. Those are pretty much all the tips that I have for you guys today, but I know a question that I'm probably gonna get and that I've gotten before is, where do you find good men? And I think a lot of places like church and that old school mindset have taught us that we can't meet a good man at a party or at a club. And I just have one question for you. Have you been to a club? Yeah, you right now watching this video, have you been to a club? I bet you that the answer is yes. And does that make you not marriage material? No. So I think that mindset is very, very outdated. You can basically meet a good man anywhere, because it's not about where you meet him, it's about who he is and what he does during the dating phase. Do you guys have a connection? Does he know how to hold a conversation? Is he a man of God? And all the other things that might be on your list. So don't let that old school backwards mindset hold you from your blessings, sis, because you can meet a good man anywhere. Another thing that I definitely want to touch on is whether or not to give up the cookie on the first few dates. My thing is just that sex is an act of intimacy between two consenting adults. And I think that whole narrative of she's a hoe if she gives it up too early is really childish and immature. I just feel like if you had a really good time on the date, you were really feeling him and you think that would be the perfect way to end the night, then go for it. But just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Make sure you're doing it because you want to, not because he spent a lot of money on the date or something. Make sure you're doing it because you want to, and play it smart, sis. If you feel like if you know that you want a serious relationship and you can tell that all he wants from you is that, then hold off a little bit. You know what I mean? Just play it smart. But at the end of the day, we're all grown. That's all I have for you guys today. I really, really, really hope you guys got a little something out of it, and I really hope you guys enjoyed. And if you did, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps me out a lot because it lets me know that you guys actually like the content that I'm putting out. Please make sure you also share the video with someone who you think might need it or who you think just might enjoy this video in general. Please also leave me a comment down below as to what you thought of the video, what other tips you might have, and what other topics you guys want me to cover. Please also obviously subscribe to my channel and make sure you hit the notification bell, because you know you don't want to miss my next video, because it's gonna be good. You know it's gonna be good. Like, it's gonna be good. You know it's gonna be good. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.